All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh Juice, an indie game podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tommy Fresh, and joined as always, it is
Matty Juice. What is up, Tommy? Episode 51. Oh my God. You know what that means next week, folks?
a
We're
year.
taking the week off. It's about time. Crazy, right? Crazy.
A year of podcasting. I mean, we did it. We keep talking about it every single week. We're like, we're making a year, and here we are, a week away. Now, I don't want to jinx it. We'll knock on some wood here somewhere. And it's going to be, actually, let me just.
Yeah, go knock on that. There you go. Just to be safe. I mean, come on. We're playing with superstition here.
That, funny enough, that thing I just knocked on for the YouTube viewers was Matthew and I's grandmother's desk.
There you go.
So how about that little history for you all? But
yeah,
we do have a great episode for you. It's like some PBS nonsense. From the 1950s. We got a great episode for y'all. We are reviewing Wild Bastards. Sorry to curse, folks. I know it's a family show, but we are going to be reviewing this game, a kind of action first-person shooter roguelike of sorts. So it's going to be an interesting one to talk about, made by the same people that did Void Bastards, if anybody played that game. Now, before we get to that, what's new? How you been? Busy weekend?
Yeah, a bit of a busy weekend. I went away for something I'm not allowed to talk about, and that's all I'll say about that. But in the process, I did also damage my hand playing some basketball, so I just kind of sprained my wrist. And so actually tying to Wild Bastards, I didn't really get to play as much of this as I wanted to. I did play a decent amount of it, but it was just doing anything, even just working today. I was just like, this is more annoying than normal. I had to like type with one hand for the whole day. But yeah, so that's been annoying. I usually I've fallen in the same kind of way many times, and it's never been this bad. So I'm like, is this just like I'm 31? This is just what happens now, like these same types of falls, like don't, they hurt more now. So yeah, just dealing with that, coming to that realization over the weekend, and also waking up very early over the weekend, anywhere from like 2 a.m. to like 6 a.m. And I'm just tired. It's just a tiring week, So yeah, but that's all I'll say about that.
All
and
right.
Maybe I'll reveal more in the future.
Well, listen, I don't know what happened, where you were, but if I was a detective, I would hear a few things. I would deduce, much like Sherlock Holmes, deductive reasoning. Oh, I'm away somewhere I can't talk about. I was playing basketball. I hurt myself. Were you free agency for the NBA? Were you going to? I mean, were we going to see you? Who play for? I mean, I don't know, the Sixers, maybe the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark.
Maybe, you'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I know the WNBA playoffs are coming up, so maybe you'll see an appearance in one of the games.
Maybe
from me.
That would be crazier than what actually happened, I'm sure. Yeah. Now, myself, I had a relatively low-key weekend. Got a new tattoo right here, if anybody could see it.
Nice.
Matching one with my fiance. So we are locked in now. No escaping. And it's going to be awesome. But it's a symbol from one of our favorite bands that we actually got engaged at one of their shows. So very, very cool. That was nice. Cool. And then we did some wedding stuff, pretty low key. Went out to dinner at a new bar. Oh, how about this? There's a new bar in the town that we live in that was a historic inn from like the 1700s, right? And it had been open for a lot of years, and then it closed and had some ownership problems, right? and it closed, and somebody came in and bought it. Somebody from New York came and bought it. So of course they're going to totally. I don't want to speak out of school here, but they're going to come in and bastardize all the history and anything that was cool about the place. But we were going to give it a chance. They opened and they had a specific. They're going to do 2 different kinds of restaurants within this restaurant, right?
Okay.
They're going to have a tavern, which we went to the tavern opened, and then they're going to have something a little bit more upscale, right? So we go to the tavern. It's like supposed to be like tavern food, bar food. And there was 1 sandwich on the menu. There was more on the menu that we looked at when they first posted about it, but I guess maybe they ran out of it or whatever. But there was 1 sandwich on the menu, and then it was like fancy pastas and then like pizzas, like fancy pizzas. Now,
Yeah.
I can get on board with the pizzas in the tavern, right? A bar pie, a little bit more elevated, but just to see like 1 burger seemed crazy. I thought I thought it was nuts. I'm knocking over Tums right now. That's how nuts I am. I got heartburn thinking about it. But the food was good. It was it was nuts. I mean, it's a little expensive too. So it's probably not an every week thing. Probably like once a month, maybe once a quarter, if anything. Maybe go down for some drinks, which is totally cool. Not really sure, but it was just I get a little like upset. Not upset. No, yeah, upset is the word I'm looking for. Upset when I see kind of this bastardization of something that was like had a lot of character, and now it's just like, this is a tavern where we have really, really fancy stuff and it's going to be expensive. I'm like, that's not a tavern. Come on, guys. So,
yeah. It's like those people that, they got like exposed brick in their house and they decide to like paint over it or like cover it up in some stupid way, just let it be, man. It's cool enough.
Exactly.
Cool enough.
And it's our generation that's probably like us and a little bit older. That's probably the most, I guess, guilty of these kinds of things. But there's so much cool stuff, especially in New Jersey, and people probably don't believe that when I say that if you're not from New Jersey. But there's a lot of history here. It's an older state, one of the original 13 colonies. Not to brag.
Represent.
So we got some old shit here. So let's keep it cool. Let's keep it old. I mean, obviously there's some bad stuff that happened in the past, but I'm not saying keep that stuff, but like, the old like architecture and stuff looks cool.
Yeah.
So,
and make sure you register to vote, folks. Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure.
Yeah, I would say so. I would reg to vote a big time, but I think today or yesterday the National Register to Vote Day.
Oh, I don't know.
It was a day this week, folks. So if you're from the States, go register to vote if you aren't already. It's very important. But we got news. We always got news. Oh my God, man! Guess what?
What?
We got a Discord. Isn't that crazy?
What?
That's
my God,
wild. We got a Discord. It is the Fresh Juice Discord, the Juice Heads. Go in, check it out. It's available in the link tree below. You can share food. Our buddy Capolo is sharing food from his honeymoon, second honeymoon. Looking like eating some poutine, some Vladimir poutine. Just looking delicious. And, and we can talk about video games too, because guess what? This is something I didn't even talk about in the catch-up. I 100%ed Balatro. I posted that in the Discord.
Yeah, you did.
I posted that. 100%. I feel like there's a giant void in my life. And I don't know what to do.
What was that feeling when you hit it, when you got it?
I like lifted up my Switch. I was sitting right here. I was just kind of playing like in front of the computer. I was playing, and then I lifted it up and walked out into the living room and was like, and she's like, what happened? I was like, I did it. And I got so close a bunch of times this week where I was like one little mistake away from getting it, and then I finally did it, and
Yeah.
Feels good. Just in time for the mobile release.
Yeah, actually, I did see for the mobile release, apparently there will be a setting where you can just turn on all the Joker, like you can just have them all. Um,
Oh, that's cool.
so like that, if if you didn't really care as much about the mobile version since you already 100% it, you could just do that too,
Yeah.
like you know, just to do it, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
What?
Or you just do it again,
Do it again.
100% it again. Do it
That
on
would
every platform.
that
That's
would
what
be
you should do.
crazy. And I
Yeah.
do have it downloaded on Steam as well. So
Mhm.
um, now I gotta wait for the free content update in 2025, and I think that's probably going to be the next time I dive back into Balatro seriously. But it's very
Yeah.
nice. But some other news, not so good news, I guess, but Annapurna. I've always pronounced it differently because I see Pur and I think like pure. So I always think Annapurna,
Mm.
but it's
Yeah.
Annapurna. Interactive's entire staff resigns from the company. What happened here?
Yeah, this was pretty wild news. So just kind of came out of nowhere where apparently some internal disagreements over the future of the company has led Annapurna's entire interactive team to resign. So apparently, from what I've read, I believe the president of the company was kind of, in a big disagreement with the founder of the company, and then the president, I guess, left or something like that, and the rest of the company went with him. I guess they were siding with him on what the future of the company should be. I don't really think there was a lot of details in what those future plans were for both sides, but yeah, all 25 members of their team collectively resigned. And just wild stuff, especially coming from like a studio that's like pretty well known. They've done games like Stray and Outer Wilds that I think won Game of the Year. Was definitely, people consider it one of the best games of the decade, I'd say. What Remains of Edith Finch was also a big game, so they're definitely a well-known studio and just pretty wild stuff here. Hopefully that talent finds their place in some other studios. I'm sure that they will. But yeah, usually, we've had so much news this year, right, Tom, of like of people getting laid off. This is like
Yeah.
kind of the opposite, right? Just people just quitting. Uh, Pretty crazy stuff here.
Yeah, it's wild. I did hear about this last week, and I was like, "Geez." It's like almost you get numb to it a little bit, and this one's just a little bit different, right? Because that's pretty wild to like. It must have been really serious to say like, "I'm willing to go out into this job market, right,
Yeah.
on my own volition," and that's scary to me, and I like applaud them if they think that's what the right thing to do, right? So like if that is how you feel you need to do it, I applaud you, but that is very scary. That would give me a lot of anxiety, so I know that probably was not an easy decision. So
Yeah.
it's a wild time in the video game world, and I don't know if it's going to get better sometimes because there's still a need for video games, but what is the landscape of development going to look like is the real question when you see these things happening, and I'm not sure what's going to
Yeah.
happen. What do you think
Yeah.
is going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, as far as like, you obviously you want as someone that is a consumer of video games, right? Like you want people to want to be developers. But with like, I mean, such a rough year and even last year, does it when will it get to the point where people just don't have there's a shortage of developers, maybe, like I don't really know because it's like a creative kind of field, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people tend to pursue those things regardless of kind of the odds and kind of the conditions typically, but you never know. I mean, and also, I mean, who knows if all these people and that president are just going to form their own studio, and
Sure.
maybe that was the plan all along, right? So, who knows if that's going to happen? But yeah, it's still what a wild year for game devs, as a whole, and I hope what comes out of this is just a eventually like better conditions for developers, right? Like, is this the start of a movement where we're going to see a lot more, indie studios pop up that actually take care of their employees, and then that becomes the standard in the industry because there's so many studios that do it properly. That's the hope, right? With all this bad news coming right now, but yeah, it's just I didn't see this coming from a studio that is pretty well known. That would shock me the same way as if like Devolver, this happened with Devolver,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no, Devolver is larger than them, but still, it just crazy stuff, crazy stuff. So we'll
It's
see
very
what happens.
crazy. And I hope that, and this is going to kind of come up later in my rec room, but I hope that we see, right, these indie devs and, publishers, whatever, maybe take the rights of some bigger stuff and put some passion behind some IPs that maybe have been forgotten because they're owned by a larger entity that doesn't care about it because in their mind, why waste the resources working on this IP where they don't really realize that it has a cult following that could also grow into a real following again. So
Mhm.
it would be nice to see something like that. Now, let's talk about Wild Bastards, though. It's maybe this is going to turn our moods back to something happier. Let's talk about this game. So, a nice blurb about it. It's the spiritual successor to the award-winning game Void Bastards. Wild Bastards is a roguelike strategy shooter with heart-pounding FPS action, mod management, and a tactical campaign. Saddle up and lead the most notorious outlaws in the galaxy. Now, I'll get right out of the gate here. This is a deep game. If you're looking for a deep roguelike experience, this is the game for you. It is there's a lot going on, right? So
Yeah.
you jump in and there's a decent amount of story. We'll get to that. And you're playing as these outlaw characters and you kind of go through these different worlds where you have like these maps, kind of like you're seeing on screen right now if you're watching, where you can go through and there's a whole bunch of different kinds of like events and like I don't it's like a board game kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Different kinds of spaces that you can go and interact with. Now, most of the ones that are going to be a majority of the gameplay will be interactions or encounters with enemies, right? But throughout the map, also you can go and you can touch different spaces that will interact with the other spaces on the board that might have enemies. So you can go find, like, for instance, you can find like a stampede or something like that. Now, this is all Wild West themed, but space and sci-fi.
Yeah.
So you can find a stampede. The stampede happens, and maybe the stampede will go on the board over to one of the spaces with enemies and will maybe lower the amount of enemies on that space, etc., etc. So there's all this kind of cool stuff, and you do it in turns. Now, you can go as duos of outlaws, and you can have a whole party of outlaws, but they can only travel together in duos. So you have to move each in a different way. Now, each character has their own kind of weapon set and stuff like that. So you go into the enemy encounters and you're basically playing like last man standing against these other enemies in this little FPS kind of arena. Really cool little maps, Wild West themed with like these really cool sci-fi elements, and you have basically kind of a pretty simple like a control set here where it's just like regular FPS, shoot, aim, whatever, and then you get like a special ability as well. Now, where the depth comes is how you manage your party throughout the game, throughout the campaign, and also how you modify your characters. So you can unlock these modifiers, and the modifiers might be like you run faster. Oh, this lets your jump be like moon physics, whatever. There's like a ton of different modifiers, and this game is so deep. And honestly, like play a decent amount of it. I could play a ton more, and I don't even think I would scratch the surface on this game. It really does feel that deep, and it's a very very fun gameplay loop. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Now I will say the learning curve, while once you're into the FPS part of the game, is pretty easy. Not like easy, but like it's familiar. You get the hang of it really quickly. The outside perspective, when you're doing the game board thing, when you're going in and you're playing different, or not playing, but like doing the different modifiers, choosing different of the RPG elements, interacting with things, the learning curve's a little bit high there. I think it there's it just has a lot going on. Like I said, it's a very deep game, but that deepness, boom, right out of the gates, you're like, there's a lot. I'm gonna have to really figure out this system. And I will say, if you are patient with that and you take your time to kind of learn this game system and this gameplay loop, it will be a very rewarding experience for you because it ends up being a lot of fun. And that was my experience with what I thought was going to be a decent amount of time with the game, ended up feeling like a limited amount of time with the game because there's a lot to unpack here. So I think it's a good, really deep and rich gameplay experience with a little bit of a steep learning curve out the gate that could turn away some people. I could totally see that. So that was my experience with it, and I know you didn't have that much time with it either. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think this game has a lot of good going for it. And honestly, I did play a little bit of Void Bastards, and like just to make it clear, like this game is like not an FPS first,
Mhm.
right? Like it's very much like a strategy game first, and then an FPS. So for me, I almost felt like the FPS part was a little bit kind of odd, like too almost like too detached. Like I would almost have preferred like maybe a Slay the Spire type of treatment where like the combat was more like that versus like going to like I don't know, like an FPS world. It kind of made me almost feel like it was kind of just stitched together in there and it wasn't really like you know, super interesting. Like I enjoyed using the different outlaws. Like I thought that they, each had like cool abilities, but I also just kind of felt like the enemies were like not that interesting and like didn't really do a lot from at least from what I had played. Like again, there is a lot of depth to the game, so maybe the enemies get a lot more complex like later on, but I mean, I'm someone that plays a decent amount of FPS games and I just kind of found it like every level I played, I was like, all right, this one, it has like an extra enemy there. Like, oh, there's like 10 here. Like this is gonna be more difficult. And like, no, it really wasn't like that difficult. And I really don't think I was like playing it super well either or anything like that. I just was like just kind of going through the motions. So that was the only kind of thing is like I hope that there is more depth with the FPS part of the game. But from what I played, it didn't really feel like there was. But I do enjoy the different outlaws. Like I said, I think it's also great how you like discover them, or at least the ones I did discover was like you have to basically go to that spot on the board, and then you're able to like get those different outlaws, which is cool. And they kind of get added to like your spaceship, so it's almost like like a kind of like a Star Trek sort of feeling where everybody's like up in the whatever the cabin, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, or is it the
Cockpit.
bridge, the
Yeah,
cockpit?
it's probably the
Um,
bridge.
yeah, whatever it is, but and I also do think that the board itself is like interesting because I believe it's like procedural as well as like when you actually are going into like a system that is also procedural too before you get to like that specific part of the board. So that was cool, like just trying to figure out. which spaces you should go to. Should you avoid certain fights? Should you like make your go out of your way to go to the shop, right, to try to get something, or try to get like a bonus, or like a heal for one of your outlaws, or something like that. And then even after, I think it's a certain amount of turns you have, because when it's it's turn based when you're on the board. So when you're done with your moves, the enemies on the board will move, which is cool. But then I think after a certain number of turns, at least from what I tested, or I played, um, there's like this like big enemy that ends up coming, and like it basically kind of forces you to leave, because I don't think I didn't try to, but the game makes it seem like you can't win a fight with that thing. So that's also interesting too. You can't just kind of like continuously farm a specific board if there's like you want to try to do all the encounters. Like it seems like you have to really make your choices of like, do I want to go and fight something, or do I want to go explore this other kind of icon here? So that was cool. I enjoyed that. It made it so that like I didn't know what was coming next, with like the next kind of area you go into. But yeah, overall, I mean, with the gameplay, I just kind of felt like the FPS side was a little. I would like to see a little bit more depth on the FPS side, and maybe I don't know, like maybe this is getting into the art side of things, but like some sort of animation showing, because it says beam up and beam down. Like I just would like maybe a little bit more of the art side to be like why am I going down to this area, or like show me like teleporting down there or something like that. Even when you use ladders, like there's not actually like an animation. Anyway, I'm getting into the art side, but
Mhm.
there's not like an animation of going up or down the ladder. You just appear at the bottom and the top. And for me, that just kind of like makes it seem like I'm playing like an alpha game or something, where I'm like, oh, this isn't like complete yet. So those little things tied into the gameplay too for me, where I was a little thrown back from it, where I'm just like, this almost feels like that part wasn't like finished. But once you get used to it, it doesn't take away from the game. It just was something that like I was kind of surprised with when I first started playing.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think, I mean, from what I played, it does get increasingly more difficult and interesting, the encounters, but it is very arcadey,
Mhm.
rather than like your typical like FPS experience. So I could definitely understand that.
Sorry, that was some gameplay.
But um, and let's get into the story though, because the story is probably where this game kind of shines the most, in my opinion, because you have, first of all, great voice acting in this, just incredible, great writing. You don't have to listen to the voice acting, but I would say it's kind of worth it, in this case, and it builds this really cool world, right? Where it's like you're the outlaws, right? And they kind of frame these sheriffs as the bad guys. So like it's very very fun. You get to see a lot of different characters. There's so many different outlaws you can unlock, which is so cool because you get to experience so many more like these really cool characters. And because there's something that you gain after you beat an encounter. It's infamy, right? Or maybe it's just a level. I forget when you get the infamy, but you get infamy. And that's just like a cool thing to get, right? And you use it to like get more modifiers or whatever in like the shops or whatever. But the fact that you're going around and find these infamous outlaws, it's just like a really cool concept, and I think they really nail it here. And then give them each such a really unique kind of personality, great voice acting, as I said, really cool character design. Like honestly, quite stunning. Like the way that I really enjoyed this art style, to be honest. And we'll talk about that in the art, but the fact that they built these kind of uh, these outlaws in this cool, really interesting way really lent to what this story was. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the world building here, and the RPG elements here are in full effect, especially when because you can kind of make these outlaws kind of resent each other if you play the game in a certain way, which I thought was a really cool way to make your choices matter outside of these encounters as well, as you said before. So big fan of what's going on here, lore wise and world building wise, because I thought I was just going to be playing these two characters initially, and then you find the third one, and then you're like, oh, and then you realize you can find another one. You're like, oh my god, and then you see like there are so many in this game, and that it just makes you want to play more, and that's like makes the game a pretty unique experience in the loop, because you get to be like, well, I want to try this one. What's he do? You know. So
Yeah.
big fan of what's going on here in the story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the like you said, I mean, the voice acting is so great. The way the characters interact with each other is like it's funny. It's got like they're kind of always making quips and things like that towards each other, and there's just a lot of interesting dialogue where really it feels like each character there's what was written for them like fits their look and then their just overall vibe. Like they each have their own personality, which is cool. I could actually even just see, you know, these characters being used in like a hero shooter, which I know we've had too many of, uh, over the years, but they just have that much like personality where I'm like, oh man, like I would love to see like everything that Casino could do. Casino is one of the characters in the game because he just looks really cool. And yeah, overall, I mean, the story, it's kind of silly. You know, it's almost like a parody of kind of these like sci-fi western sort of like movies and things like that have been made. Um, and yeah, I didn't play, obviously I didn't get like too far into the story. I know it's about 10 hours long too, which is like a decent amount of time. I think for a game like this, and especially with all the dialogue in there, it's going to be packed with a bunch of story elements. Um, and honestly, it was nice to have a game as well that like has a good amount of dialogue in between like your action sequences, where
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like we play a lot of games where like, oh, it'd be nice to just get like a little bit of dialogue in between things. And sometimes it's a lot in this game, sometimes it's just a little bit. But you can see on if you're watching on the YouTube stream, like it's really just like a little animation of the character talking, and then they have like their text box and then the voice acting. It's like not super complicated cutscenes, anything like that. So I think they did a really good job story wise. And then each like level that you're on, like we're seeing some of the kind of the board game sort of levels too. Like they're, we'll talk about the art, but like it fits to the story as well. Like where you really feel like you're kind of in a different area, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, you played more of the story than I did, but it definitely was one of my favorite parts of the game. Where like I agree, I think it's worth listening to like the voice acting in the game. And this is coming from someone that doesn't like a lot of dialogue, but this is like different where like sometimes in games it's like I have to go out of my way to talk to someone and then there's a lot of dialogue. This is like the game is like telling you a story.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really going out of your way to talk to things or anything like that. So I didn't mind it. Plus it kind of just gives you, some of it's funny, so it's like it's worth listening to for me. So and just the way they talk as well. It's not like perfect English or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. They kind of got those kind of cowboy way of
Twang.
talking, that twang. Yeah. Um, so that was cool as well. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy overall with the story in this game. Um, will definitely wants to make me get more outlaws so I can see what their story elements are, and how they sound and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, but in terms of the art though, lot to talk about here.
Yeah, yeah. So and it's funny enough. I don't laugh at a lot of games, but that McNeil character, as soon as he started talking, I was like, what the heck is this? It
Yeah,
was hilarious. And a lot of that voice acting, and I'm just going to lead into the art right now. What it was giving me? It was giving me Cartoon Network / Adult Swim video game, right? I
yeah.
could see this just be a TV show that I would have watched, you know, late night Adult Swim. And the artwork here is really really cool. Now, character design I mentioned in the story kind of lent to the world building here, but it is excellent. I do think the character design here is excellent. I do like the graphics. I typically, I've mentioned before, with first person shooters, I have an issue, right? Like I have an issue. I suck at them. Now, no, I have an issue with like getting motion sickness. Didn't get that at all. I did move the field of view setting all the way to the right, but it didn't. It didn't make me sick or anything like that. It was very fluid. The controls, along with you moving through these maps, was very, I thought, really smooth and looked great. I kind of love these neon colors. Now, all of that being said, I think it looks awesome. I do have some UI issues with this. There's a lot going on, and I mentioned it in the gameplay about the steep learning curve, and I think a lot of it kind of hinged on this very very busy UI at times, right? There's a lot going on and a lot of different things that look very similar and a lot of reading which I'm not good at, but there was just a lot, like even in some of the menus, the mini menus when you go to the mods, a lot of the options looked similar and you're just like, I really got to focus in on this, and that kind of takes away sometimes from the experience. I felt like the UI could have been a lot cleaner, because it's a shame because it really looks great. Everything looks awesome, but that was just kind of bothering me. So I don't know.
Mhm.
It's that's just maybe just a me thing. I understand there's a lot going on. It is a very deep game, as we've said, and you kind of need a lot going on in the UI if it's deep, I guess. But I found it to be a little overwhelming at times. But to be honest, it does look amazing. The character design here is incredible. I love the colors. It's just a really cool looking game.
Yeah, I agree about the UI. Like that was definitely something I was gonna mention. I actually thought like the game looked best when you were on the board. I
Mm-hmm.
thought everything kind of made sense there. But even when you're in like FPS wise, like here, I thought, you know, I think it might have to do with the way that they color things. Everything is kind of the same sort of color.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's always, they're always following like this black and pink or purple kind of aesthetic. And I feel like it makes it so that nothing really pops out. Like for example, right here watching the gameplay, this person has like a power up, like the roulette power up. There were multiple times where, like, I didn't realize I had one because it's, like, showing on the right side of the screen when I feel like normally it would show on the left side of the screen. It also might, like, kinda pop a little bit more. So, like, things like that, and, like, this is obviously, I also, can be attributed to, like, user error, but I do think that, yeah, it's a little busy, the UI, like, when you're in your ship, when you're, like, building your loadouts, things like that, it can just be a little bit all over the place. So I would definitely like to see that improved. And that is something that can get improved with updates. They can make quality of life updates for that sort of stuff. But as you can see, like this person's on the board right there, I thought that was the best part of the UI. It just made sense. Um, it's like playing a board game on your computer. Like it just makes sense with everything the way it's laid out. But um as far as like the actual art of the game though, like yeah, it's great. It's got the Void Bastards style to it. I actually was like, I had in my notes like, there are certain things where I'm like, oh, this kind of looks like in like Family Guy when they have like a 3D sort of like scene or something like that, or
Okay.
like like it was giving me like that sort of artistic style for certain things, but then it's got a lot more depth to it. It's like that western and like sci-fi vibe. So like it'll be like you're kind of in this like abandoned sort of town, and you go into like the saloon, and the saloon has like holographic tables in there. Like it's this like weird kind of combination of things that makes for a really cool aesthetic. And yeah, it's got this purpley pink vibe to everything. It's a very neon. And it's the characters are well designed too. They got a lot of depth to them. There's your boy McNeil talking right there. But each character also has they just look so cool, like every single one has their own like flavor to them and ties into like that whole personality thing I was mentioning earlier. Is like the way they look ties in the personality. And overall, even with like the issues with the UI, like the game is just great to look at. It's got a lot going for it in terms of the art, and they did a really great job. I would say this and like the story are kind of like um, hand in hand with just like some of the top things. There's a brand new character. I mean, look how cool he looks. You got like the Ghost Rider kind of vibes to him, smoky. He's got his own sort of personality as well. I love that he's got a gas mask too that's like hanging around his neck, as if he needed that.
Yeah, what's that
Um,
doing?
right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the art really great in the game and up there with the story for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the sound, really, really cool Western music, right? I don't, and I actually think that they do a good job of keeping it just with that kind of vibe. I found, with some kind of sci-fi stuff happening, but it really was just put me in the mood. Like, yeah, wild bastards. That's just what I'm doing. And the sound effects are great as well. I think everything sounded really clean, clicky, ASMR, especially in the menus. I mean, that was a big thing for me. And then, I mean, I guess you might as well throw in the voice acting here as well. It just, I mean, it was incredible. I think, honestly, I think the voice acting is probably the best thing about this game, and it's worth mentioning multiple times because it felt like a very professional job and like something, like I said, you could find on Adult Swim or something like that. So not a whole lot of notes on the sound. It wasn't like blowing me away. I'm not going to be listening to the soundtrack, but it was very, very good.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's got those Western vibes. It was like exactly what I was kind of expecting with the game. It would be kind of weird if it had kind of anything else. And yeah, the voice acting, I don't have a lot of notes either. Like the voice acting is really where it shines. It's just so good. And I don't really remember if in Void Bastards they had such great voice acting because it's been a while since I've played it. But this could also just be something that this studio is just really good at, because honestly, if it's this good, I would be surprised if it wasn't like this in Void Bastards. But again, it's been a while since I played it, so I don't really remember. But yeah, no more notes really on the sound. It's just it's worth listening to when the dialogue's going on. So great job there.
Yeah, amen. And as far as performance goes, I didn't have any issues. Did you?
No, yeah, no issues on my end. I know this game is on Switch. I imagine it probably runs pretty fine on Switch too.
Yeah, all
So if
platforms, right?
yeah, if you're looking to get this one on Switch, I would guess it would be fine. So yeah, it ran pretty well for me.
Sounds good. Which that means is going to bring us to the rating. Our ratings are as follows: your S tiers are your certified fresh juice, A tier a steal, followed by get on sale, manager special, and then spoiled milk, which nobody wants. Matthew, what do you give Wild Bastards?
All right, so I am gonna be giving Wild Bastards here a get on sale, a high get on sale, I will say. It's a $35 game. It's 15% off until September 26th again. So if you're listening to this, you got like a whatever, a little over a week to get it 15% off. But I do think for me, like such a core part of the game is that FPS side, right? I mean, it's in the description of the game, and I just kind of felt like it needed a little bit more polish for me to like, I don't know, maybe it's longer missions while you're in there. maybe something like that. And this is just me coming as like an FPS player as well. I just kind of felt like I wanted a little bit more from it. I just think it's such a core part of the game that I gotta knock it down a few points because of that. But there's also just so much great stuff going on with this game, like so much depth to it. The characters, the voice acting, like that's why I'm giving it like a high on sale. Like I think if they made some updates to the FPS side, I could see this being like a steal for me. But for $35, like I was just kind of expecting a little bit more on that side of things. So yeah, I'm giving it an on sale.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. I'm giving
Yeah.
it a very solid steal. I think that there's a lot going for this game. I found the FPS side of things to be very rewarding for me. I'm not a big FPS player though, so I'm coming from it from a different lens. But I think with everything going on with the story and the art, it was a no brainer for me. I think you get a lot out of this game, and it has a lot of replayability, and it feels very deep. With the roguelike elements of building your mods and exploring and unlocking these different outlaws. It felt very, very up my alley, and I kind of really enjoyed it. The only thing that really I could say was a true problem for me was some of the UI stuff, and that would be something I would like to see fixed. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. I'll be playing more of it. I will say that. So, yeah, Steel,
Getting wild.
getting
Yeah.
wild, getting crazy. Now,
Cool.
next week is our 52nd episode, 1 year, as we mentioned.
Ooh.
We might play something, we might not. We'll see. See how we're feeling. We might get frisky, we might not. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we'll just reflect. So tune in and
Maybe.
find out. Now, we do have listener questions. You can submit these questions by joining the Fresh Juice Discord, which is in the show notes before. And oh wow, how about this? Kmore asks, so the devs of Void Bastards made Wild Bastards, huh? Anyways, which Ninja Turtle do you relate to the most?
So it's tough. This is a tough one,
Yeah.
because I feel like I relate to like two of them probably the most. I would say like Donatello, not because
Okay.
I'm a genius or anything, but just because he's a techie guy,
Sure.
and I'm a techie guy as well. And also, I've always liked Michelangelo because he just doesn't like, he's just like laid back, kind of just like go with the flow kind of thing. So I try to do that too. So I feel like I'm almost like a combination of the two. I'm like Donna Angelo or Michael Tello, perhaps. So I'm gonna go with those two. It's tough to choose between them. But what about you, Tom? What are you thinking?
I
Ninja Turtle.
I don't know. I mean, I think I was a Raphael guy. I always liked Donatello. I don't think I am Donatello, right? Like
Okay.
it's hard to be Donatello. I
Yeah.
think I like Raphael, a little brash, a little reckless, perhaps, a little crazy,
Hmm.
a little buck wild. So Raphael, yeah. I do want to play that Ninja Turtle roguelike at some point, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That came out not too long ago,
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that
and
would be
it's
cool to
co-op.
play. Yeah. Is that the
I think.
is that the one that looks like the old school like arcade Ninja
No,
Turtles?
it's
That
like a
was the one
top
before
down
that.
one, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, right, the top down one. Because that one was good too. I forget what that arcade style one is, but I played it on Game Pass when it came out, and um, that was a good one. That was a good one as
It's
well.
called
But
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate.
ooh, Splintered Fate.
Co-op gameplay, top down, like isometric with roguelike elements.
Oh shoot!
It does look pretty sick. I watched some gameplay of it. I mean,
Yeah,
what's better than the Ninja Turtles, right?
very few things.
Very few things. I
Yeah,
love when the Ninja Turtles and Batman team up. That's when
yeah.
things are really cooking. That's when I know things are going to be all right.
Well, man, that I hope they show up in one of the movies at some point. One
That
of the
would be
Batman
sick.
movies.
Have you ever
Yeah.
seen the slide, not the slide, the page from the comic where they teamed up and like Batman's like all brooding. He's like, "This is where my parents were killed," and then like one of them's like, "Cowabummer."
I have seen that.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
oh,
great.
that's classic. You can't
Yeah.
beat that. Now, Capolo asks, since Balatro is moving to mobile soon, which other indie game you reviewed this year you would like to have a mobile version of?
Yeah, so I thought about this one a bit, and I'm gonna go with Questmaster because I think it is totally possible to have a game like that on mobile. And I would just love to see like the mobile audience make, you would get so much content because it would be available on mobile with a game
Mm-hmm.
like Questmaster. And I have played it on my phone, like using the Steam Link app, so it's definitely runs fine on there. As far as like it looks good, I should say. On a mobile phone, it's not like too small of a game or anything like that. So yeah, I would love to see that make its way to mobile at some point. I think it's still in early access, so maybe a mobile release is in its future. At some point after 1.0, but um, I'm going with Questmaster. What about you, Tom?
This is a tough one. I think there's two. The Norp Apolog would be cool. That'd be a nice little idle game, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, Boar Blasters on mobile would probably hit pretty hard
Yeah.
because you can even do like a different version of it that's like vertical, so you don't have to play horizontal because it just feels like it would work, right?
Yeah.
Rather like you just keep digging down and then you got to go back up or something like that. It there's a lot going on there that I think could be a lot of fun on mobile.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'd almost be like I don't know, maybe you could even do it with like a gyroscope of like how you control the helicopter,
Yeah,
almost like a dual jumpy kind of thing going on.
that'd be kind of
Uh
cool. And then there's
yeah, it would
also
be
like
cool.
Downwell, which I'm thinking like
Yeah.
Downwell there. But yeah,
Yeah.
good question, Cap. Good question. And R Carp asks, when you're playing a game, when you're playing games, do you prefer to focus on beating one, or do you like kind of spreading the love and playing multiple games?
I try to keep it to one. It's hard to do that sometimes because, you know, um, you might think you can beat a game before the next one comes out, before another game comes out you're looking forward to, and you don't. And then all of a sudden you're playing two, and you're like, oh God, I gotta like try to split my time. And yeah, so I try to stick to one. I find like playing many games also just makes me, I like to kind of sink my teeth into a game when I play it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to do that when you're playing a lot, especially like obviously we have full-time jobs and everything. So can't be playing all the time. So yeah, I try to maybe I do like 2 to 3 games is like at one time is kind of what I'm playing. I'll just like swap games in and out of there. So like right now it's like once human, I guess like Elden Ring as well is in there, and then it's gonna be Balatro when that hits mobile next week or like 9 days or whatever. So those will be the three that I'm playing probably the most of. But what about you, Tom?
Yeah, I find it's really hard to sink my teeth into most games these days because there's just not a lot of physical releases and everything's digital. But
Hey,
I'll see you later. I like to focus on one, to be honest. Uh,
yeah.
I really do, and sometimes I'll focus on multiple. Like I was doing Balatro and Wild Frost at the same time, and now it's just Wild Frost. But actually, I'm doing Wild Frost and Arco now, so I'm playing two different
Oh,
games in Arco. If it's not going to be my Rec Room this week, it will probably be a Rec Room coming up. So that game's sick. It's
cool.
so sick. But yeah, thanks for the question, Arcarp, as always. And that was the listener questions. And now it's the end of the show, which means we're going to go to the Rec Room for a little bit, have a little fun. We would recommend something that perhaps isn't an indie game. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so it was tough for me to choose a rec room this week. I couldn't really think of anything, and then I remembered. that there's a show that I've actually said on the Rec Room before called Slow Horses that is on Apple TV Plus. It's got Gary Oldman in it. It's a great show about like basically uh, MI5 or whatever, MI6, whatever the European CIA is, whatever. I don't know. I'm so bad with the names, but basically the slow horses are like the rejects of that kind of group, and like it's definitely like an R-rated show. Gary Oldman is like the most disgusting, vile character I think I've ever seen, and not like because he does terrible things. He's just like you know
Gross.
just gross. Yeah, he's just gross. And it's so funny. He plays it so well. But season 4 just came out, and my wife and I, uh, we watched all the seasons. We didn't know season 4 was about to come out, so it was a surprise. And I got to tell you, like the start to the season was just like, holy shit! Like what the hell is going on? So it's just been really great so far. Like it's been we found that Apple TV shows, like a lot of them that we watch, we're like, wow, these are like surprisingly good. Like you would think that Netflix has a lot of like ups and downs, and Hulu ups and downs with like the shows that we watch, but like Apple TV has been really consistent. There's maybe been one show we haven't been super into. It was like C, which is that Jason Momoa show where everybody's blind or whatever. That was like we were like, this is so dumb. Like, especially when they go fight each other and they can't see each other. It's just like, what are we watching here? Like, it's so ridiculous. But every other show has been great. Ted Lasso, Shrinking, great show. And then Slow Horses season 4. Highly recommend going and checking it out if you can. Any way you can get to watch it. I think it's worth watching if you're looking for a new show. So that's the rec from me.
I'm surprised it isn't. Well, you haven't really had a lot of time to game. I was surprised it wasn't Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2.
Oh,
Seems
dude,
like right up your
I
alley.
yeah, I've been watching some of it, and I keep seeing people say that it has Gears vibes, and like it kind of looks like it, and I was like, yeah, I should probably play it because it just looks dope. So
You
I'll
should.
I'll
It's
get
the
around to
Helldivers
it.
killer, man. I mean,
Yeah,
it's.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I have Warhammer 40K. For those of you who don't know, is actually a tabletop game that has an extensive video game catalog of all different kinds of genres. I mean, I don't. It's a crazy, huge universe,
Yeah.
and this game looks pretty crazy. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the clips are just insane. So, but that's not my rec room. My rec room is a a YouTube video, a video essay I actually shared with Matt earlier, from a YouTuber called Humble Mud, who made a video essay called Gauntlet Dark Legacy Needs a Remake, and I'll tell you why. And I gotta say, this was not only a great watch, it goes into the history of Gauntlet and what it means to, like, what Gauntlet is as a genre and how it's genre bending and why it's so much fun and why Gauntlet Dark Legacy hit so hard and how it actually was one of the first franchises to make the huge jump from 2D to 3D. And it's just such an impressive video essay that was like really interesting. I was just watching it because, like, yeah, I agree. Gauntlet Dark Legacy does need a remake. And then I watched this whole 30-minute video. I'm like, oh wow, this is like really good. And yeah, so shout out to Humble Mud because that was a great video. And to the fact that people are still talking about that game here in 2024 speaks to how awesome it was. And yeah, it's a banger.
Yeah, that video was great. It had like so much nostalgia in it too when he was talking about like how he showed it to his friends and he was like a little bit nervous because like they didn't know if they were going to be into it, and then all of a sudden they're up like late in the night like playing, and even when he was sleeping they like still leveled up his character and stuff like that. It was just like hitting all the nostalgia vibes.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, he made a great arguments of like why it would be successful in today's market too, which I think is important. Like so many people want games remastered just for like the nostalgic reasons, but like Gauntlet had like so much depth to it. Like if they remade it today, it would still be successful, right? Whether it was
100%.
a remaster or just like a reboot of Dark Legacy with like, you know, some of the stuff maybe we're more accustomed to today, with like unlocks and all that sort of stuff, like maybe, you know, better systems for that. But um, it was, I really feel like if they ever did an official remaster, like we would play the hell out of it. Like it would have to be something we'd be like, all right, this weekend we're getting the boys together
That's all we're
and we're
doing.
yeah, that's all we're doing because we've been talking about this remaster since like 2010 or like you know, it's been ridiculous. And I would love if they did it. There is that fan made project though.
Hmm.
I guess you know, the hope is slightly there, but it would be great to get an official one.
Yeah, I'm in that Discord still, and I look at the updates every once in a while, and it's I mean they're cooking over there. They're cooking, but it would be nice
Yeah,
because I didn't even know Warner Brothers owned it, the
yeah,
rights to it. So you're just like, I mean, that's why I said earlier it would be nice if some indie studios got their hands on some of these IPs. And I know Airhead did the Gauntlet, like the original Gauntlet remake or like
yeah.
remaster. Um, and there's just so much, and a huge kind of point that Humble Mud made in this video about the success of Vampire Survivors is just all the proof you need that Gauntlet Dark Legacy could just totally slap right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, check it out. That was such a great game. Love it. Now,
Yeah.
that's going to do it for the show. We're on the eve of 1 year.
Ooh.
Ooh, oh wait, people can find me at Twitter at Fresh Buds Pod. I have another podcast called Fresh and Buds where I talk about a game called Flesh and Blood. It's an indie trading card game. I mean, I don't even know if you can call it indie anymore. They're so big, but still owned by this small company. Last week we had Charles Dunn, who does class design for Blizzard in Diablo 4. We had to record really late because he had a raid to do in WoW. So that's a loyal,
Oh.
loyal Blizzard employee right there. I'll tell you that much. So check that out, and you can continue to find us on all socials at Fresh Juice Pod. Matthew, where can people find you?
Yeah, find me at Matty Gorm, Gorm, on all the socials. Been away for a bit, so I had one video go up that was scheduled, but working on some more YouTube content and it's going to be doing some more streams in the future. Got some stuff coming up with Once Human that'll be cool to reveal and all that jazz. So, yeah, catch me out over there on the Twitch and on the YouTubes.
Catch me outside. How about that? Fresh juice, everybody. Goodbye.